Okay. First of all, I like to, I appreciate very much your invitation for 20 celebration of 20 years of global learning. The next, please.
Yes.
Okay, here it is.
Yeah.
Okay, here, I can stop here. The objective of this presentation is to reflect about what are the most important new areas of research to develop under this theme, and how can we leverage our truly no. In the first slide, which is not this,
this one?
Yes, no, the first one.
Is this it?
Yes, section,
No.
The next one, next. Excuse me. Okay. No, the slide before this.
This one?
Before that.
Okay, before that, just a moment. This one?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead.
We show the main challenges to discuss artificial intelligence and innovation process, mainly, and this is very important to be discussed in the next session, and to stress that artificial intelligence is not only automation, it's not only augmentation, but also automation. That is, literature speaks about automation, but do not speak about augmentation. I like to say that artificial intelligence and other related digital technologies are changing the way industrial production, service delivery, organizational management, and innovation process take place. Artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies enable innovation process, especially in services, and this opens challenge for global scholars. What is necessary is to open the black box of computational and decision-making approach relative to artificial intelligence. And what I mean about that is that the computational perspective, the decision-making view, and the management perspective do not take into account many issues relevant to discuss artificial intelligence. And Glaser and all artificial algorithms are not independent and purely performative entities. The perspective dismiss the process of socio-technical translation in the organizational field relating to use of artificial intelligence, and this is very important, they consider neither the organizational context nor institutional arrangement. Next, please. Please, next slide.
Yeah, I have the next slide here.
Okay, I go on without slides.
Okay. I have the next slide.
Okay, here it is.
Yeah.
Okay. To understand innovation in services based on artificial intelligence, it's necessary to consider it as a co-production process and an emerging property of socio-technical assemblages. Two issues very important: the idea of co-production and the idea of emerging properties in terms of complexity derived from relationship between artifacts and humans and objects and so on. It means understanding technological solution based on artificial intelligence as a complex system with positive feedbacks among actors and artifacts. In computational and managerial perspective, the technique has been scarcely explored. That is, the socio-technical context is missed. A question appears here is the following: do routine dynamics approach open a new analytical perspective on studies of innovation process that goes beyond the classical evolutionary perspective? It's important to say that routines dynamics focuses on how routines facilitate innovation. By the contrary, in the classical evolutionary economics, the standardization of routines interrupts the innovation process until new problems arise or are discovered. This is the idea of Pavitt, Nelson and Winter, and many other scholars. Routine dynamics place artifacts at the center of routines, are not something static, but also dynamic. And this is a very important issue in this presentation, to speak about routine dynamics and make the differences between dynamic capabilities. Next one, please. Here we say that how can Globelix strengthen its relevance by taking on strategic areas related to current and future challenges under this theme? The first one is improve research on co-production process. The second one is discuss routine dynamics and its relationship with dynamic capabilities. Increase research on STI and STS. And include the idea that artificial intelligence, routine dynamics are related to acceleration of restless capitalism. Coming back to the first point, I would say that new technological and methodological approaches needed to describe and analyze the novelty of artificial intelligence-based innovation process. And the discussion of new methods and indicators, especially in service, and how to measure co-production. That is, innovation needs co-production, and co-production needs other indicators that usually are used. Increase research on STA and STS, introduce some perspectives from actor network theory or other perspective, complementaries from science, technology, and innovation. And the last, wait a minute. Well, I can you come back, please? Beyond organizational changes driven by the generative process of automation and augmentation routines based on artificial intelligence, clearly lay out a path of increasing productivity. The continuous generative process of augmentative routines are not interrupted because of this, there is a process of disequilibrium. And this is a very important issue also. In routine dynamics, the innovation do not stop. Analysis and routine dynamics come from Nelson and Winter and other scholars, which in the 80s stressed that innovation is related to the solution of problems, and when there is no problems, routines do not change. And I think that is a very important issue. Next, please. In sum, the co-production process of digital technologies involves human artifacts interaction and active participation of intermediaries. It requires a situated action and a cognitive distribution system that leads to automation and augmentation process. Interaction among firms and institutions lead to and require deliberation and interpretative flexibility, as Baker used to say. Co-production is a socio-technical process that involves actors and artifacts, which implies translation effects between the representation and performance dimensions of routine dynamics. These dimensions of as generative process imply routine dynamics that are interrelated by feedback effects and depend on the situated actions and the production trajectory. Finally, I like to show the literature we have used to this presentation. The last one is a paper is going to be published in Industry and Innovation. I have written with Leandro Leprate and me, Artifacts, Routines, and Co-production, a pioneering case of artificial intelligence-based health services in Argentina. This, a previous version of this article, I have sent to Erica in order to be shared in this seminar. But in these references, you can say in many times how differentiate routines, dynamics, and dynamic capabilities. As an example, Marcus Becker, Natalie Lazarick, Richard Nelson, and Winter applying organizational routines in understanding organizational change in industrial and corporate change. Two interesting articles written by Salvato about dynamic capabilities and routine dynamics. That is very recent and maybe something can be developed by scholars in Globelix. Baldessarelli, Lazarick, Pesoni is a recent book, a recent journal, Organization Routines, Evolution in the Research Landscape of Two Core Communities, and Wenzel and others. Well, this is all. We have used this literature from the theoretical point of view, not for the result link it with artificial intelligence and health services. All this case study is in the Leprate and Yoguel. Well, thank you very much.
Shall I stop sharing, Gabriel?
Yes.
Okay.
Stop sharing.
Okay. All right. Okay. I now turn the floor over to Miranda for her comment, and as you know, and to respond to the points Gabriel made. Over to you, Miranda.
Thank you very much, Balaji. I would like to speak without PowerPoints, if you allow me. I would like to address comments on the PowerPoints, excellent PowerPoints. Before, I think what would be interesting for us, for Globalists, to explore more in the future is not only about the technologies per se or innovations regarding ICT per se, like artificial intelligence or big data or IoT or so forth, but also the person, I think, because I would like to recall a case in Australia where there was a case maybe last year that decided that an artificial intelligence can be a subject of creativity. It was challenged, but it has been sparked, and I think in the future we will meet a lot of options of subject in cyberspace. Okay, so maybe Balaji or I would like to make up our alter ego in cyberspace using new avatars, and maybe the avatars will act in several meetings, and then they have rights. And also we know that IE can become a kind of our substitution. So I think because of the case I mentioned before, it would be good if we can explore not only the technologies themselves, but also the subject, the overall cyberspace as the alternative space of us, because it will entail geopolitical factors, also legal aspects, for example. Because I'm from legal background, so we've been discussing about how the jurisdictions change. We all know that laws has national jurisdictions to protect intellectual properties, not only patents, but also copyrights, trade secrets, and so forth. But now, because of the cyberspace, we have to admit there is a new jurisdiction, extra extraterritorial jurisdictions, not only territoriality, but extraterritorial jurisdictions. And maybe it leads to universal jurisdictions. It means that we have a new global legal system, maybe with a new kind of state or stateless. And then there we've been having kind of big corporates playing there, like a new territory. So I think because Globalists is very innovative, I think it's better to be eager to explore more in the context of cyberspace, not only artificial intelligence, but the cyberspace in general, with all of the aspects in it. And also, maybe we have to redefine what's the meaning of humanity in ICT context, because what I've mentioned before, that we are dealing now with the new pseudo persons or persons, and new jurisdiction, new protections, and new lacks of justice, and many possibility of injustice, new injustice. Like I enjoyed from the first presentations that in cyberspace we will be more appropriate to discuss about the central states and peripheral states. Yes, that not only states, maybe some of the multi-corporate institutions have becoming a new state with their own regulations, and we cannot do anything with them. So how to make them play fair for us from different countries, because we have a different capability just to access that space. And then so maybe using fairness in the term of non-discrimination and equality in the term of balance of the power in cyberspace maybe can add us more comprehensive knowledge about ICT. That's the thing I would like to mark and add. Thank you very much, Balaji.
Thank you, Miranda. So, after a wonderful presentation by Gabriel, where he sort of highlighted the importance of thinking about routine dynamics, dynamic capabilities, and also about co-production for the Global X community as a whole, Miranda has come in to highlight the possibilities of a universal jurisdiction or extranational jurisdiction, and it's what it might mean for fairness and more broadly humanitarian considerations. So I hope I haven't misrepresented either Gabriel or Miranda. But having said this, I would now like to invite questions, comments, and discussions, and throw the floor open. Yeah, any comments, questions? Yeah, Erica, please go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yes, thanks so much for this great inputs and sort of stimulated some thought in terms of what it means. And I think some of the comments I see a comment in the chat, perhaps, that is mentioning, what does it mean in terms of, particularly in relation to the comments that Miranda has raised on what does it mean in terms of the disciplinary boundaries of the work that we do. And Gabriel also mentioned the need for a stronger connection between the work that we do in terms of innovation system with the STS literature. So I would like to probe a little bit more to both of you on that, in terms of the disciplinary kind of conversations that need to happen within our community to allow for these themes that you've raised to unfold in our research agenda. And then Miranda, some of the stuff, and it's related to that first question, but Miranda, you mentioned very important issues that go to the core of really redefining the concept of humanity, redefining the concept of justice and injustice. A lot of it has a lot of regulatory implications. So the role of regulation and how we look at regulation in our literature also may need to expand. We've been looking at regulation in a little bit more sort of in connection to the production system, primarily, and quite a restricted view of the regulatory environment that relates to innovation. But now, you're talking about quite a broad expansion of the role of regulation. So perhaps some reflections on that as well.
Yep. Gabriel, would you like to go first? Respond? Yes, please go ahead, Gabriel. You're muted, Gabriel. You're muted. We can't hear you. Yeah, thank you.
I think that Miranda has stressed very complementary issues related to this presentation. That is the legal, the institutional. I think that the first ideas I tried to show was the relevance of co-production. The co-production leads to a new form of measuring by indicators what is going to be the next session. Co-production is also the complementary assets between actors involved in the co-production services. Other issue important I like to stress is the idea of emergence. The idea of emergence is an idea that, as Jeffrey Hodgson say, was very important in social, in economics and sociology and so on. And emergence leads to the complexity and the interrelationship between actors and artifacts, which is not the way the mainstream literature talks about it, as artifacts do not compare with humans, and in this our case, the algorithm to solve some health problems used to need the strong cooperation between humans and artifacts, this case as an algorithm. Other issue I like to stress is convergence between science, technology, and innovation, and science, technology, and society. And to discuss much more in depth relationship between dynamic capabilities and routines dynamics. I think Globelix would improve a lot in this way if some scholars present case studies in deep showing this relationship. The comments of Parthasarathy were in the same direction that Miranda, and I like it very much, and thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. Miranda, would you like to? Yeah, I think Miranda, would you before would she like to respond to comments made by Erika, and then the floor will move to Rasmus and then to Bengtoke.
Yeah, Erika, I think it's very related. I mean, if you would like to explore the ICT, we know we've got the new law regime like law on ICT and IP. And then we know, for example, in pandemic time, intellectual property plays the main role to make the inventions regarding the vaccines or the immune boosters to be deliberated or distributed fairly in all over the world. So I think legal aspects very important, not only to protect new innovations, but also to give them more space, and then to make sure that the end products of the innovations not only enjoyed by some part of the world, but all of the countries possible, because that's always the problem. Like when we recall about the distributions of the vaccine, for example, in Europe, you've got too many vaccines available. But for example, in Africa or Asia, we have to wait longer to only have the first vaccine or boosters, for example. And that's not only about economic about economic problem, but also how patent is used maybe to make it easier, or on the contrary, to make it difficult to be distributed to developed countries, for example. So I think that legal aspect is very important. And most importantly, if we explore more about not only innovations in the term of patent, but also creativity, we know that NFT, for example, have made many creators, even a child, be a millionaire because of the valuation in cyberspace is different, with valuation happen in our material world. So I think maybe if you would like to ask about the interrelation, it's really closely related, and it can give more strength to ensure that the humanity and justice presents in our economic sectors.
Thank you, Miranda. The next person is Rasmus. Rasmus, you had your hand up?
Yes, I did. I will be brief. It's a comment, I guess, on the idea of co-production. And of course, if co-production works, it's a really good thing, because it ensures that we have, I guess, what in the olden days was called appropriate technology, because all the users in the ecosystem, they come together to define how the technology is shaped. But I think we do have also in this network an opportunity to look at how the diffusion process really unfolds when we're talking about new and emerging technologies. So all of these that we have been discussing, advanced digital technologies, AI, blockchain, cloud computing, all of these. And I was thinking about this because I was listening just the other day to somebody who was talking about an initiative among NGOs working in the global south in the space of health, which you were also talking about, Gabriel. But where it was quite apparent that many of those solutions that had come up in the interaction between the NGOs and the health space, there was something about malnutrition and apps that could be developed to identify malnutrition cases and so on, were sort of completely inappropriate in the context. So I think it could be interesting for us also to even dig out some of the old work by Ben Dorke. Maybe he can speak to that. He raised his hands. But this entire idea about user-producer interaction. So you have extremely powerful producers, these IT monopolies and companies around them working in ecosystems that are extremely powerful. So the mismatch in power between the producers of these technologies and the users of these technologies, in this case NGOs in the global south, is completely unequal. So I think it would be interesting for us to put together some research projects looking at these kind of user-producer interaction relationships, getting back to some of that earlier literature and see how it unfolds. So I think that could be a concrete suggestion for maybe some project proposals from some of us in this call.
Thank you, Rasmus. I gather that was more a comment and observation rather than a question. So, I will therefore move on to Bengtoke for his comments or questions. Over to you, Bengtoke.
Thank you very much. I think the future is not only artificial intelligence, but I do think it is extremely important to try to understand the impact in at different levels. One statement which has been very powerful is to say that AI is a technology to innovate. And I think that to work out more concretely what that means in different fields of science, different areas of technological development, and also what Rasmus indicates somewhat in his intervention. What does it mean for our traditional way of thinking about innovation as an interactive process? How does it transform the role of users and producers? So that is, I think, one core issue. Another one is I did, together with other people, research in the 1970s on the introduction of microelectronics in business sector. And what we found was that the performance coming out of it was not so much dependent on the technology, but on what Kaplinsky talked about in the earlier part of the session, organizational issues, and what Miranda is talking about now is, of course, that AI has even wider implications, including for legal issues. And I would say that understanding the kind of friction or mismatch or whatever that will appear in different areas. I mean, there is a great gap between what is possible to do with AI and what will actually be done for good and bad, because we have institutions, legal issues, power relations, etc., which are there, which will limit the actual impact, and it will take longer time. So these are some of the things I think. But again, I mean, we must be aware that AI is very important, but we also need to think about other areas and also the linkage between AI and other areas like sustainability and transformative policies. I think to understand what role could AI play for good and bad in transformation innovation policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Bengt. Okay, I see Michiko has had her hand up. Michiko, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you very much. I thought that the discussion was very interesting. I would like to highlight the issue about innovation and regulation. There has been a series of kind of work has done, that how the regulation actually speed up or change the course of innovation processes. And I think that currently the regulation also plays a role, but in different ways, and also it's opening up the space which are unmarked, no border, and it's becoming to be a kind of global common public goods. And how to do that, I think, has a lot to do with this. I think that Cecilia was mentioning about the power relations, and it has a lot to do with the subject of the power relations and who owns the technology. And then the vaccine issue that you highlighted is very much related to that. But also, I would like to highlight that it's not only the vaccine technology itself, but also all the complementary process technologies that are owned by various different large corporate or the new startups, which were actually collaborating with a large corporate. So, I mean, we do not have a very clear solution to that. And then obviously, the global green technologies, the digital technologies, it comes to very important, it covers very important areas, but we do not know very well how the regulatory kind of mechanism will be shaped. And especially now we are talking about, I think it's both third session, that we are now entering into the policy has to be evidence-based. And if we don't have the data, how are we going to build the policy? It's becoming to be an issue. I'm just highlighting a lot of issue that I don't understand, because this is specifically the session to talk about the future research agenda. But I think that it really opened up a lot of interesting research agenda by hearing these two presenters. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Michiko. And I think there's a question or a comment on the chat from Anurag, where he says, I think it connects nicely to the whole question of vaccines. He says, perhaps it's really time to start thinking of universal healthcare in a significant way, along with advances in science and technology. And I'm going to take the liberty of also throwing in something here as the facilitator. I wonder, we've been talking about vaccines and the inequitable distribution and so on. I mean, there's also another parallel literature on global public goods. So I wonder how that sort of relates to the discussion we've been having today. And of course, connecting to issues of power, whether we talk about a universal jurisdiction or whether we talk about co-production, especially in light of what Cecilia had said about some companies indulging in supposedly co-production, but then appropriating the benefits of it at the end of the day, right? Certain companies, particularly in North America and so on. So I think these issues of power, how we think about, global public goods are things that I'd like to sort of throw into the discussion. And since I don't see either any hands up or any questions in the chat, I'm going to turn it over to Gabriel and to Miranda for a final round of comments, and then we can close the session. Over to you, Gabriel.
Okay, thank you. I like very much the Rasmus and Benoke comments, and we in the article we are written now. We put that user-producer is a very strong antecedent from co-production. And also the idea of national system of innovation and regional system of innovation requires co-production and requires new methods of measure the gradient between the extremes of a national system of innovation. I remember a seminar where Bentoke discussed with Daniel Chulnowski in Chile. Daniel used to say that in Argentina there is not a national system of innovation. And that the national system of innovation is a gradient, is something is possible to found it everywhere, every time. And what we try to say here is go beyond the idea user-producer, but this is the central idea from which the co-production appears, and the idea of complexity, which is also implicit in the main articles about system of innovation. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. Miranda, over to you.
Really enjoyed this discussion. Thank you very much, Bentoke and Rasmus and Gabriel, and all also all of the commentators and Michiko. I think I just would like to highlight that if you would like to explore about the policy of ICT, I think I'm very understand why Michiko said that we don't have any source or enough source, and we have limited knowledge about it, because that's what's happened now in terms of regulations. For example, if we would like to develop our national innovation system based in material world, we've got a very established national regulations and international laws, for example. But if we talk about ICT, for example, ICT, we are still searching about how the best way to regulate it, or maybe we have to deliberate for all of the institutions playing there, maybe multilateral corporations, or maybe starts up to have a self-regulations. But for consumers, it will be very difficult to comprehend, and we cannot assure that the products or innovations can running smoothly from the producers to consumers. So I think I agree with Michiko that we have many agenda before us, because we don't know. This is very new. So I think I would like to recommend the research on those things to become our future agenda too. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Miranda. All right, since there are no further comments, I think, and our presenter and discussant have had the last word, as it were. Thanks to both of you, Gabriel and Miranda, and for all the people who responded, for laying out a possible, road for the future for GlobalX. And I think there's much out there that we can pick up on and discuss over the next few months, and perhaps at Trivandrum at greater length. So with that, we'll close this session. I hand the baton back to Erica so that we can move on to the next session. Over to you, Erica.